Hello everyone and Happy New Year! I think that today, as the first show of 2018, it's going to work out. If you were here with us last week, was it last week? The last time I tried to stream, it was not working. So please let me know in the chat that everything is going smooth, that you can see the picture, you hear me, and then we can start our Banter Blitz session. Please let me know in the chat. And once again, everyone, welcome to the first ever 2018 session of the Banter Blitz shows with Miss Strategy. That's me. I will try to play Blitz games against you today. As many as possible. Well, today we are supposed to be chatty. So today I will analyze the games more deeply during the games and also in the post-mortem. You know that every second session. So 1 week is more about games, more playing, and other weeks are more about analyzing and learning together. Today we are going to learn a lot, hopefully. So just let me know in the chat that everything is okay. Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm watching now the chat on Chess24. So join the chat on chess24.com. You need to go to the website, which, I need to show you right now. I hope you can see it. Oh geez, let's stop the video. I don't want to watch myself. So you are looking at the website of Chess24. If you are on YouTube, please head to chess24.com and there you can click on my show, Banter Blitz with Anna. Now, if you are there, all you need to do is have an account on Chess24. It's free and you can register with your Facebook or with your email and then you can chat with us here. So this is the chat I'm reading. Please come here if you want to talk to us. I'm reading this chat during the stream. Now, if you want to challenge me, all you need to do is click on my name, this is my handle, and challenge me for a 5-minute blitz game. 5-minute blitz game, rated or unrated, but it should be a 5-minute blitz game. And premium members always get priority, so if you have a premium membership, that's awesome. I'm gonna accept your challenge right now. Let's head to the play zone. What do you guys think about it? Let's bring up a chessboard, blitz, and let's remove my video because I see myself twice. That's no good. So we are on Chess24. I'm gonna accept the first challenges. Once again, welcome everyone and a Happy New Year. I hope that you are very motivated to improve your chess in 2018. Let me know about your goals for this year and what is your chess goal, what do you want to achieve, and how inspired, how motivated are you to work on your chess this new year. I hope that you are ambitious. I hope that you will reach high and you will get to those goals that you have set for yourself. Let me know in the chat and also in the YouTube comments about your chess goal for this year and how will you work on it. Now I'm gonna start my first game and hopefully we will learn a lot together today in this session. First ever session of 2018 with me. Challenges. Let's see, I've got plenty of challenges. I'll try to pick someone that hasn't played against me yet. Bogeta, I think I haven't seen your handle yet, so I'm gonna accept it. Let's see if the board works. Awesome. So far everything looks like it's functioning. Not like the other week. E4. Usually I play the French defense, but this is a new year, so let's go for E5. What do you guys think? Let's change a bit on my opening repertoire. I will still stick to the French. I love the French defense. Oh, the bishop opening. So this can transpose to the Italian. For instance, if I go knight c6 here or knight f6, those are the two variations. Which one shall I go for? Knight c6. If he plays, or she, I wonder. Knight f3, now this is the Italian. So this is actually as if it started out with knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. The Italian and the evens gambit. I used to play this opening as a kid. I didn't think it was according to my style because I'm not about sacrificing. So I don't think that I was playing the opening that was the best fit to my style, but I learned a lot. Even if you don't play the opening that's the best fit for your style, you will still learn from it. So now I need to remember, because most of the time my opponents play the Spanish or the Italian, but no gambits. And I need to remember how I should play against the Evans Gambit. So white sacrifices a pawn for initiative. That is the point of the Evans Gambit. And I think I don't even remember. I know that I knew the variations as white, but I don't remember it as black. So let's figure it out. I think I vaguely remember some d6, queen d7 setup, but it's not in this position, is it? Very vaguely remembering that. Well, let's play it because when you don't remember the variation, make a sensible move. And that seemed like a sensible move. So he could have taken on e5 and then win the pawn back. But I guess my opponent thought that that would be just a roughly equal position. So he's not doing it. You know, guys, I think it's still very dangerous for me. I will let you know later on what I thought. I'll let you know later on. And yes, it can be seen that normally I'm not an e5 player because somebody plays a gambit against me and I don't remember the line. So bishop g5 looks like a logical move, pinning the knight. Now, he probably wants to take, for instance, h6, he might want to take and then play d5, chase this knight away, and then queen a4 check would win the bishop. So I should be careful about that. Very careful about that. That's why I'm gonna castle first. I'll show you in the post-mortem the variation I was talking about where black can lose the a5 bishop. Very important not to lose a piece. And so yeah, that was the variation I was afraid of, if white could achieve a position where my queen is not on d8 and against the queen a4 check I wouldn't have c6, protecting the bishop with the queen from d8. If this sounds complex, stay tuned for the post-mortem analysis. Regardless of the result, I don't really care whether I win or lose this game. I will show you the variations I've thought about during the game. That's the purpose of this session today, to learn together and improve our chess together. This is a new year. Let's get better at chess. Why not? Now my opponent is thinking, I guess he started calculating whether to take on e5 or push d5, but d5 earlier was more forcing. If knight e7, of course, my kingside pawn structure will be horrible, so I need to go back to b8. That's an achievement for white because I lost to tempi and now my knight is back on b8. So obviously I did not play in the best way, but at the same time d5 closes the position. And what white was aiming for is to open up the position, since he has in the initiative and advantage in development. I just got frozen for a moment because I saw bishop b3 and I didn't think that was the best move in the position. So that's why I thought for a moment, what is going on? I'm gonna just develop this knight, head to c5, which is a nice square for my piece. There's no b pawn. Remember that white sacrificed the b pawn, so I'm heading to c5 with my knight in case I want to capture on b3, or well, the pawn could have been hanging if I get rid of the pin. Now, I like to attack this bishop because I want to see whether my opponent will keep the bishop, pinning the knight, so bishop h4, or he will move the bishop back to, let's say, e3. He keeps the pin, so I think that's a great idea, but at some point I might want to push g5, weakening my king but getting rid of the pin. I need to develop my pieces, and I feel like I wish I could just push b5 and then develop my bishop to a6. I might do that. It looks kind of crazy and just to give up the pawn, but I want to place this bishop here and win the rook on f1. So if queen takes b5, I don't think bishop a6, queen takes a5, bishop takes f1 is a good deal for me, because I would give two bishops to win the rook on f1. So my plan after queen takes b5 is to move the bishop b6. So I lost the pawn. We would be equal material, but I think I've got the initiative. Now I've got the upper hand because I'm threatening bishop a6, winning the exchange. And suddenly my pieces are very well placed. The knight on c5, I love. The bishop on b6 is much better than on a5. So I gave back the pawn in order to win tempi. And now I have my pieces better developed than my opponent. So sometimes you might not want to be that greedy. Give back the material, if you like, and develop your pieces faster than your opponent. This is a different kind of advantage. Let's place the rook on the b file, and now some threats against the queen. And I've got some tactics here. Taking the pawn and then bishop takes f2, so I'm winning the queen on b4 if my opponent takes the knight on e4 in this position. If he doesn't take it, then he needs to remove the queen from the b file. I'm threatening bishop takes f2 now that I have opened diagonal. Diagonal is such a difficult word for me. So now the diagonal of the b6 bishop is open. That's the purpose of this knight sacrifice. Knight takes e4. If it's taken, bishop takes e4. I'm gonna take on f2, discovered attack to the queen, and yeah, he realized it. And actually, the problem with queen a4, it could be a problem for me that now two pieces are hanging, but knight c5 simply coming back here means that I'm attacking the queen, protecting the bishop, and I've saved the knight as well. So everything is under control and I won a pawn. Now, once again, it's problematic where to place the queen. Queen c6 looks like it could be trapped there, if not immediately, then soon. And queen a3 is the only safe square, but it's also not ideal. It gives up the pawn, and the queen on a3 is still weird. So now the d5 pawn will also fall. You see that once the e4 and the c4 pawns drop, the d5 pawn should as well drop. And that's quite a lot of material for black. Already 2 pawns. Of course, I lost some time, so it took me some time to capture the pawns on c4 and on d5, but 2 pawns are 2 pawns, and I like that. My only problem is this pin, so I should get rid of that at some point. What about now? So I want to play knight e6, even though it looks weird, but I'm preparing g5. I didn't want to play g5 before because I thought that my opponent might want to sacrifice his knight for 2 pawns after g5. Obviously now my bishop is hanging, so let's take this guy first, weakening the opponent's king side. You see these, now this is really weak, and I can play knight f4. Actually, knight f4 is very tempting right now in this position. Oh, but there's a pin on the d file, and after knight f4, rook takes e5. Let's not forget about that. Okay, I'm gonna play first g5. That was my initial idea, and remove the queen from the d file. Also, if queen e7, I would lose the pawn, so I should be careful still because of the pins. The rooks on e1 and d1 are very well placed, so the e5 pawn was hanging, also because of bishop takes e5. So I need to watch out, and I need to hurry up. I don't have much time. I definitely need to play faster. Okay, this was now. Oh, I really don't have time. I should hurry up. I love my position. I have 2 pawns up, and the bishop is hanging on c2. I'm heading towards f4 with my knight. Beautiful position, but I don't have time, so I should really watch out not to lose on time, like right now. Yeah, I'm getting into trouble if I don't pay attention. He also doesn't have time, so this is now a situation where we are both low on time. I probably had to go with the other knight, but anyway, my opponent... Oh! I'm dropping the exchange. I still have material, quite a lot of material, but this is not ideal at all. I was not... Oh, I could have won the exchange back with this check, and now I'm gonna take it. And now it's winning. I won on time. Now that... I first thought that I must have lost on time because we were both just on the edge. I had 1 second left and my opponent lost on time in the end, but we could have both lost on time. We were just playing on seconds the last couple of moves. This was a very interesting game, Bogetta. Thank you for the game. And let's go through the critical moments because today is about learning. It's the new year and we all want to improve our chess. I hope that you also want to improve your chess. Be ambitious and be motivated. It's just such an inspiring way to start the year. Start with something where you are not so good. So improve a field in chess where you think you make mistakes. I think that is a great way to start the new year. Work on a field where you're not so good. So don't just enjoy playing positions that you like, but try to work on something that you fail to see. For instance, if you are bad at tactics, work on tactics in January. If you are bad in endgames, work on your endgames this month. Just this month, and then you will see whether you want to continue. But new year, new aspirations, be motivated and work on your weaknesses this month. Promise me that you do that, please. I would love that. I would love to see you working on your weaknesses in January, this month. So, it's the Italian game. It started out with bishop c4, but it actually transposed now to the Italian and the Evans Gambit, which I completely forgot how to play against. I think normally I would play bishop b6, not accepting the pawn, but since I don't remember my lines, I took on b4, and after c3, you can go back to c5 or to a5. Now after d4, I'm pretty sure I should have taken on d4, and that must be the line, which I completely forgot. So yes, this would have been the main variation. And I think now castle, d6 here, queen b3, queen d7. I think this was the line. So I remember that there was something weird and it was about queen d7, but I didn't remember how the variation was exactly. So if my memory doesn't fail, which usually fails, then this would have been the variation I wanted to play. Since I didn't remember it, I played d6 immediately, which allows white to win back the pawn immediately. I was aware of this, but I like trading queens, so I thought that it doesn't matter that I give back the pawn after d takes, queen takes d8. Now I'm gonna lose the pawn, whether it's the f7 pawn or the e5 pawn, I'm gonna drop one of the pawns. Of course, I prefer to give up the e5 pawn because imagine, I take with the king, I can't castle anymore, even though it's an endgame. There are still many pieces on the board, so I don't want my king to be on an open file on d8. And after dropping the f7 pawn, and this is the important part, my e5 pawn would have also been weak. So this is not a good deal. I wanted to take on d8 with the knight, give up the e5 pawn, but at least the f7 pawn is covered. I could develop, let's say, knight f6 or knight e7. And this is, I thought, a playable position for me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just bad. For instance, does white have time for bishop a3, cutting my king so that I cannot castle, sacrificing this pawn, but probably with the open e-file. After castling rook e1, this would have been super dangerous for me. So I'm not sure that I would have... I wanted to play in the best way. Okay, maybe still, okay, bishop e6 just to cover the e5, trade some pieces. This is what I was going to do. But my opponent didn't want to take the pawn back, so Bogetta went for the initiative. Castle, not caring about the pawn, and after knight f6, bishop g5. And here is the variation I was talking to you about. h6 was very tempting to ask the bishop what he wants to do, but this would have been a horrible move in my opinion for black. White takes on f6, I would take back with the queen, that was the idea, right, of playing h6, and now, after d5, suddenly black is losing a piece. Look at that, doesn't matter where I go with the knight. After queen a4 check, the a5 bishop drops. Now why does this not happen in other positions? It doesn't happen in other positions because the queen on d8 will defend the bishop on a5. Let's suppose white plays d5 here. Then I go knight e7, and if queen a4 check, I still have the move c6, protecting the bishop on a5 and threatening b5 at the same time. So this was my defense, but once the queen is chased away from d8, attracted to the f6 square by this exchange, then I would lose the bishop on a5. So that's why after bishop g5, it's very important that you either move the bishop from a5 or you castle. Castle as soon as you can, because that check on a4 is painful. And after d5, I can't play knight e7. You should never allow this. This is horrible. I'm sure 99% of the people watching know this, but still I want to emphasize that you should always try to prevent that your king side ends up being like a sand castle. Now this is already a half washed away sand castle. Horrible. So many holes. Very weak king, even if you don't get mated immediately, which you don't. But on the long run, this is a very weak structure. Even in an endgame, it's a weak structure. So try not to do this in front of your king. If it's on the other flank, it's not so bad, but if it's in front of your king, you will suffer for a long time in this game. So everything is better than this. If it looks like very ugly that you placed the knight where it came from, you lost 2 tempi. The knight is back on b8. Admit it that you probably went wrong before that, but at least your king is safe. So it's better to place your piece back on the back rank, but keep your king safe. And now, I think bishop b3 was probably not the best, but it's not so easy for white, because white would need to open up the position as soon as possible. That's the only way to take advantage of your advantage in development. So white is ahead in development. That is what he has for the pawn, but at the same time, the move d5 closes the position. That's why I was not certain whether it was actually a good move for white, because you would want to open up the position and take advantage of the not so well developed pieces of black. Though, at this moment, I think black is already doing okay. So this is, I think, a moment where bishop b3, bishop c2 was too slow. Now I develop my pieces and suddenly it is black who is playing for the initiative. I give back the b pawn, but what I get for the b pawn is lots of tempi and development for my pieces. Of course, white doesn't have to take it, but then I have gained lots of space on the queen side, and next move I can still go bishop a6. Even if the pawn is not taken, I'm threatening to push that pawn and go bishop a6. So it's logical to take it, but as I said, black has gained quite many tempi. And look at my pieces, almost all my pieces are developed, while the knight on b1 is still there, the rook on a1 is stuck, and the queen on b4 is suffering. So in this position, I'm already threatening to take the pawn on e4, and that's what happened in the game. Whether it's a knight move or a pawn move, white should have realized that I'm threatening the queen on the b5, so you need to remove it, but the queen doesn't have many squares. You need to go queen a3, which doesn't look very tempting. So this position, I think, is already very nice for black. I'm not winning material in case of queen a3, but I have advantage in development and very active pieces. So this is an advantage for black for sure. Now after c4, it's already even winning material. The tactics is you want to remove this knight from c5 so that you are threatening bishop takes f2. Don't just move the knight away and threaten bishop f2. Do it with a capture. Of course, a capture is more forcing than just a silent move. Knight takes, and if bishop takes, the tactics is bishop takes f2. So I have given up 2 minor pieces, but I win the queen. Good deal. This did not happen. After knight takes c4, my opponent realized that there's a discovered attack on the b5, but after knight c5, now you once again cannot go back with the queen. Queen a3 drops the pawn on c4, and after this, the position collapses. So later on, my only problem was the time factor. And one last thing I was talking about is that, well, here I think I should have taken immediately on f3. As soon as you can destroy the opponent's castle, do it. I didn't do it immediately. I could have taken immediately. I was too focused on pushing g5. And one thing I was telling you is that, for instance, what shall I show it? Well, let's say here. You can try to push g5 in positions like this too, but sometimes it is okay for the opponent to give up a piece for 2 pawns and destroy your king side. So my king is now very open. There's no pawn on the g and the h files. If white could bring his major pieces, the queen, after taking on c5, bringing the queen to the king side, or rook e3, rook g3, rook h3, my king would be in trouble if those major pieces appear on the g and h files. So even if this is not a winning sacrifice, it's very dangerous when your opponent gives up a piece for the g and h pawns. Take it into account before pushing g5. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Take into account the exact position, calculate, and then push g5 if you want to, or just be safe and remove that knight before it can go and do some harms. I could have taken on f3 and then pushed g5, for instance, to prevent this sacrifice. Or what I was going to do, knight e6, so that I'm supporting the g5 square, and this knight is heading toward f4. So from here on, this position is winning. Black is 2 pawns up, and it's a very nice position. The only problem was time, and that I completely forgot about this double attack. So don't step into tactical motives. But actually, I didn't realize that here I'm threatening too a double attack. So my opponent played rook d1. No, not here. Yeah, I didn't see knight d3. I mean, I was so low on time. I just started pushing the pawns. Knight d3 would have won the exchange back. So anyway, what happens with a few seconds on the clock is not really what you normally see on the board. It's usually a blur out, and you don't see half of the tactics. Happens. That's Blitz. That's the end of Blitz games. Let me know in the chat what you thought about this game, and let's go for a new game. What do you guys think? Let me see the chat. I see Moritz is saying that in this line, in the theory of bishop c5. So I think you're talking about that the queen's gambit with bishop c5 is not so good. Probably. I usually don't capture the pawn. So Moritz is saying that the bishop c5 line, which is the most logical, coming back to c5 with the bishop. I think a beginner, if he or she doesn't know this variation, he would take the pawn and then drop the bishop back to c5. And in theory, this is not the best. So you might want to take and go to a5, or if you don't like adventurous positions, after b4 you can play bishop b6, which is more solid. White has gained space on the queen side, and it's equal material, but b4 has pros and cons, so this is not just a simple, it's much better for white. It's a complicated position. You might want to play this if you don't want to take the pawn and remember how to defend the f7 pawn. I did not remember d6, queen d7. It looks weird to put the queen in front of the bishop on c8. So, Ocean Racer is saying that he thought that black was just better after bishop b8. Probably. That's why d5, I had mixed feelings about d5. d5 looks like it's pushing me back to the back rank, which is normally good for the opponent, that I'm going backwards and I'm not developing. But you are right that in such a closed position, it doesn't matter. I have time to regroup my pieces. I can maneuver with my pieces. On the other hand, if the position was open, imagine no e-pawns and f-pawn, let's say, or just the f-file open already, that would already be dangerous for me with this pin on my bishop, on the f6 knight because of the bishop on g5. If white could just open the f-file, for instance, that would already be a huge improvement. But in such a closed position, it doesn't matter that my pieces are still on the back rank. So I agree with you, Ocean Racer, and everyone else who said that after d5, black looks okay, because black is a pawn up and the position is closed. In closed positions, you have time to regroup your pieces. Thank you for the game, Vogetta. It was such a pleasure to play against you, and you discovered that I don't remember the not Queen's Gambit. I don't remember the Evans Gambit, even though I used to play it when I was 10 years old. So 20 years ago, I used to play this opening as white, but as black, I don't remember anything about it. Happens. Let me know in the chat if it also happens to you that you just black out and you don't remember theory, especially in Blitz games. So if it's a classical time control, I managed to remember the variations, but in Blitz, I tend to forget a lot more. Tell me in the chat, please, if it happens to you as well, so I won't feel so bad about my blackouts and not remembering. My memory is not very good. Luckily, I have good intuition. If not, I don't know how I would play chess. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Memory is definitely not my strength. My strength is intuition and positional understanding. So let me know about your strengths and your weaknesses, and what will you work on this month of January? What is your weakness? On what field will you work to improve your chess this new year? Let me know. New challenge? What do you guys think? Shall we play 1 or 2 more games? Even though today is more about chatting and learning together. Remember that today is about learning. I think I haven't played against you yet. PHC123. Nice to meet you. From the Philippines. Wow. I think I haven't played against anyone yet in my Banter Blitz sessions from the Philippines, so it's really nice to meet you. PHC123. Paul. Nice picture. And it's my turn, so I'm gonna play e4 because it's a new year, but I'm still an e4 player mainly. So e4. The French defense! I always have mixed feelings about playing against my own favorite opening. You feel like you know it a lot, so that you can choose whether you want to play the terrace or the main line, the classical main line. So I like the fact that I know the opening very well and I can choose from many variations, but I also feel like it's difficult to beat my own opening. So I have this mixed feeling. I feel like I know my field a lot, but I also think it's a good opening for black. So I don't think I see any big problems for black in the opening. It's gonna be decided in the middle game who wins or in the end game. But certainly I don't have a refutation against my own favorite opening. And that's a pity. Now actually, there are many openings. Almost every opening is playable. Nowadays with the engines analyzing, and chess has improved so much that basically any decent opening, like don't go crazy, but almost every opening that has a name is playable, except for the very weird ones. That means that you are not supposed to be worse in the opening. Almost every opening is good enough to have a roughly equal position or close to equal. You might be somewhat worse, slightly worse, but not more than that, in any opening that has a decent name. So of course the French is a great opening. I was just wondering whether it makes a difference that you didn't take on d4. Because usually white takes on d4 first and then pushes f6. Will there be a difference? I need to figure that out. And I've got my mug, of course. Sopiko is with me again. We're gonna meet soon in Waikanze. We are both going to see the tournament. So I will also post it on my Facebook, I think, because I got to know it today that we are both going and we are going to see each other in Waikanze for the 80th anniversary of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament. I'm very excited about going back, seeing once again the Waikanze tournament. It's a legendary event. I don't know if you have been to Waikanze, but if you haven't, you should visit the event. 80th anniversary, everybody will be there. It's a historic moment. In this variation, usually what happens is that white trades the dark squared bishops. You see that for white, the good bishop is the d3 bishop and the bad bishop is the dark squared bishop. The other way for black, right? The d6 bishop looks very nice and the bad bishop is clearly the c8 bishop stuck behind the e6 pawn. Knight b4. Usually black takes on f4 and then plays knight e4 or knight g4. Knight b4 I haven't seen yet, but I want to keep this bishop, so I'm certainly not allowing knight takes d3. I'll drop back to b1, which looks like a weird move, but next move you can chase away the b4 knight with a3, and actually having the bishop on b1 is not bad. You can either play queen d3 later on and try to give mate on h7, or you can place the bishop back on d3 or on a2. Those are options as well. So now my bishop is hanging on f4. If I take on d6, I'm helping my opponent develop the queen, and that I don't like. I usually prefer to play moves that help me and not my opponent. So I'm considering bishop to e5. Will he play afterwards knight c6? I can also take on e4, but that's normally not what I would want to do. This bishop is precious, so even though it would mean doubling my opponent's pawns, shall I give up my precious bishop? I'm not very convinced about giving it up right now. So I'm gonna play bishop e5. One thing that black can do in the French, in this terrace variation often, is to sacrifice an exchange by playing rook takes f3, which would mean that yes, he's giving up a rook for a knight, but at the same time that destroys white's king side, so my king would be weak, and that is a positional exchange sacrifice. I'm not sure if this is the right moment to play it. Usually you play it as black when you can put a lot of pressure on the d4 pawn afterwards, or attack the king on g1. So if rook takes, g takes, queen g5 is just a check. I can play knight g3. Or if rook takes, g takes, knight g5, threatening knight f3, I can just move the knight away and defend the f3 pawn. It's interesting, but I'm not sure that this is the moment to play this exchange sacrifice. Certainly my opponent is considering it because he's taking his time. Knight c6 is I think the best move. So he wants to take on e5, and now I should decide whether I will take on d6 or what I'm supposed to do. I think I will take, because I can't strengthen my e5 post, and I don't want to take back there with the pawn. Or actually, it could be an idea if I play knight g3. So normally I would want to keep the e5 square empty. I would want to use it as an outpost for my pieces. What will happen now after bishop takes or knight takes is that I need to take back with a pawn on e5. And normally this is not what you want in the French defense. So I'm changing the pawn structure. But what I discovered is that since I already have this nice setup, well, the bishop on b1 looks like it's bad, but it could be good. I will show you how. Now I can take back with the knight or with the pawn. If I take back with the knight, will he or will he not take on e5? I like both moves, and that's the most difficult when you like both moves. So both options are tempting. But I think it's more forcing to take back with the pawn, attack the bishop so that I can show you next move the whole thing about the bishop on b1. So yes, it's obstructing the rook on a1. It's on the back rank. But it allows you to develop a queen-bishop battery. Next move, I want to play queen d3 and threaten mate. Well, it's not mate on h7, but certainly you don't want to give up the h7 pawn. So black has to play g6, which weakens the dark squares. A pity that I don't have a dark squared bishop anymore, but still, g6 weakens the king to some extent. I think this position is complex. I'm not claiming that white is better, but I think it's a comfortable position. I can probably play with either a3, b4, and later on the bishop could appear on a2. Or I can try to go for knight d4. The problem is later the e5 pawn will be hanging. And I don't have much time. Oh, what a surprise. So, I'm gonna play bishop c2 first. This was not my initial idea. But I thought that I should improve my bishops first. Develop this rook. Protect the e5 pawn for good. Oh, a double attack on my pawns. I'm gonna play... Oh! I stepped into bishop b5. Horrible, horrible, horrible. He's gonna play bishop b5. Impossible that he doesn't play bishop b5. I'm gonna be an exchange down. In a sad position. Oh, geez. And he can also take on b2. This was bad. I should still try to fight. So don't give up. Even if you are lost, don't give up. Try to do something. Try to mess up the position. I don't want the bishop to be hanging on the c file. I'm lost. I'm an exchange down. I completely stepped into this. It was a horrible move. But I also don't have time. This is bad. Guys, this is really bad. Let's try to be tricky. The knight is a very tricky piece and I still have a knight. So I'm gonna try to use it. I wanna play knight g5 next move. That's why I'm attacking the rook. I'm dropping the f2 pawn. This is bad. Knight g5 was also very bad. I'm gonna lose the queen. He doesn't want to take it. Oh my god, now I have to play knight h3. Looking horrible. It's just getting worse. No, I've been playing this very badly. I played this game very badly. I'll try to make some decent moves, not lose immediately. Close the position. Close the position. Try to survive, Anna. Threaten on g6. Check, check, check. Queen takes g6. He doesn't blunder. I'm gonna maneuver my knight away and drop the g5 pawn. Get back to h3. This is probably the worst game I played this year. By far. By far the worst game I played this year. What is he doing? The queen! What is this? And I didn't take on g6. Jeez, I'm gonna be mating now, next move. What happened? I can't believe it. I mean, this is the worst game I played this year. And this is the beginning of the year. But still, it's the worst game I played this year. And I still win it. PHC 1, 2, 3. I feel very sorry that I won this game because I didn't deserve it at all. I mean, you outplayed me from the moment I dropped my rook. I didn't deserve this point. I don't like winning this way because I think I should have lost the game. So whether you think it's good to win no matter how, or you think it wasn't fair, I think it wasn't fair at all. So until this point, Paul, I think you played very well. And you completely tricked me into this bishop b5 idea. So actually already here, after bishop d7, black is okay. I wanted to play knight d4, but even then, it's not such a good idea, because queen b6 still attacks the knight, and maybe the pawn. Sometimes you need to be careful about capturing a pawn on b2, but I mean, lots of pressure on d4. And in general, I didn't think that I can just leave that e5 pawn undefended. So I certainly didn't choose the best way to play. I thought that this position would be better for white than it looks. I thought that here I have some kind of attack. I eventually thought about knight h4, threatening knight takes g6, but that's just a dream. You will not let me take on g6 and mate you. You can play queen g5, for instance. So certainly, I built my idea on something that didn't exist. I didn't have enough attack. If in this position, after queen d3, g6, if I had an extra minor piece, let's put the bishop back, the dark square bishop for white, and I could play bishop h6 or bishop g5, bishop f6. If I had that bishop on the board, this would be a beautiful position for white. Now with only a knight and a bishop on b1, it's actually nothing. So you played very well, Paul. You completely outplayed me from this moment, because I forgot. I forgot that after queen b6, I cannot defend the f2 pawn. I mean, I can only defend it with the queen. I had to go queen e2, but then you play bishop b5. So what I'm gonna do here? Queen d2 to keep protecting the f2 pawn, but this doesn't look nice at all. Black has the upper hand, so I certainly didn't play well this position. Rook c8, now threatening bishop takes f2, trades on f2, and then the c2 bishop drops. Even if I move the bishop away, I think black is just better in this position with the pair of bishops, the semi-open f5, open c5, very active pieces. I certainly misevaluated this position. So what I was telling you guys about, that normally you would want to keep the e5 square for your pieces, it was still true. Even if it was by losing a tempo, I had to take on d6 and just keep the position this way. Don't change the pawn structure, because in this pawn structure, the d4 pawn can be sometimes weak, but also the e6 pawn. So this is a very interesting situation in the center, where black will be attacking the d4 pawn and white will be targeting this backward e6 pawn. White has the e5 square as an outpost. Not so easy to place your pieces there. You need to maneuver this e2 knight somehow to be supported by the f3 knight, and then you could place a knight on e5. But even if you don't get there, placing the queen on d3 and then knight g3 would be an idea, because then the h7 pawn would be hanging. So I had to take on d6 first and then play this queen d3 idea. I was not careful at all about what I'm going to do in this situation. I really thought that here, because it's all within the initiative, I'm going forward with a tempo each time white makes a move. So d takes c5 was a tempo, queen d3 was a tempo. I thought this was good, but actually g6 just defends everything and I don't have an extra piece to attack the black king, so I achieved nothing. This was a bad idea. Something to learn for me as well, for the new year, that just stick to the old structures that you know. This is just fine for white. It's slightly better. I'm not claiming that white is winning here. Even if I get to play knight g3, black can go back to f6, not getting mated. And this is just a very normal position in the French defense. So this is what we should have reached. Instead, I went crazy going for this queen d3 idea too early. And I got outplayed. So Paul, you played extremely well. You won the exchange and then I was just lost. I was lost the whole time. And I played some really horrible moves even afterwards. So I'm completely lost here. And I was also lower on time. Knight g5 is just bad. You can take on f2. And that's it, basically. I mean, maybe you were afraid at knight e6, but my queen was hanging with a check. And if I move the queen, I will lose the queen. So this was lost immediately. Rook takes f2. I was lost immediately. I should have resigned here because if, let's say, queen b5, you can just go for the knight, for instance. Rook f5 check and then you take the knight. So I was lost immediately. Knight g5 is horrible. After queen e7, I go back to h3, which is of course a very bad square, but at least I'm not lost immediately. I'm completely lost in this game too, in this position still, I mean. And then, yeah, here the g5 pawn was hanging, but we didn't have time. So I think you probably pre-moved. No, you didn't pre-move, but you didn't have time to think about rook f5. You could have just taken on g5. So lots of missed chances. And I think this was a mouse slip. So eventually the game was decided by a mouse slip. You probably wanted to play queen c7 or queen d7, but not queen d6 for sure. Or queen c5 maybe you wanted to play. Let me know in the chat, Paul, because I'm sure this was a mouse slip. I mean, queen d6 has to be a mouse slip. I'm really sorry that I won this game in the end. This was not a well-deserved point for me. You should have won this game and you outplayed me. So congratulations, you played very well. And if I could click on a button and give the point to you, I would do that because I think you deserve the victory in this game, not me. If anything, in the end, probably it would have been decided because of the time situation. One of us would have lost on time for sure. Maybe me, maybe you. But the position is lost for white. So game-wise, I lost this game. You won, and this was just a mouse slip. So congratulations for playing so well. The whole idea with queen b6, bishop b5, and then defending everything. I was trying to trick you, but there was no way to trick you. You played very well this game, so congratulations. One last game and some more chat. And next week, oh, actually not next week, in 2 weeks' time, we will have a new Banter Blitz session. You know that normally I play every week. Next week I will be away. I won't be streaming next week, but in 2 weeks' time I will have a session where we play more games. So you know that today it's more about learning and chatting, and in 2 weeks' time I will play as many games as I can and won't analyze so much. So everyone can have what they like. Some of you like more when it's more about just having fun and playing games. Others prefer when it's about learning. So I'm trying to do both. This session is about learning, and in 2 weeks' time it will be about playing more games. My last game of today is against Moby Chess. I'm playing with the black pieces and I'm waiting for your move, Moby Chess. Nice to meet you from the Netherlands. Let me know if you are going to Wykonzee. I'll be there visiting. Not for the whole event, unfortunately. I wanted to go, but I can't. I'm currently involved in a construction project in Spain. Who thought that I would ever draw architecture-wise anything or design anything? But I'm doing that right now. So that's why I can't be commentating in Wykonzee, but I'm going to be there as a guest one of the weekends. I will post it on my Facebook so that you know when I'm going to Wykonzee. And if you're there, say hi to me, of course. And I hope that we can probably take a picture together and talk about chess in general. So I'll be there. Make sure to say hi to me if you see me in person. I don't bite. This is the French defense because New Year or not, still my favorite opening. And this is the closed variation. So one of the ways to play it is with knight d2. The other way to play it is with queen e2, the king's Indian attack. And the other session, a few weeks ago, I played this. I messed it up with bishop c5. The correct way to play it is this way. So that now, after Is it bishop c5 here or next move? Take on the e4 or bishop c5 first. That's what I always mess up. No, I think it's first still bishop c5. So a few weeks ago, I played this same opening here with the black pieces, and I messed up the variation. I didn't play knight c6. No, I didn't play knight f6. I played bishop c5 immediately, and I got into trouble in 7 moves. It was ridiculous. It was the worst game I played that session. Now, I remember it, and I played the correct way. h3 is not necessary. I think bishop e2 or bishop g2 is better, but you were afraid of knight g4. It's understandable, but I don't think this was necessary. I'm gonna take here. I'm wondering if I can already try to play for some tricks, but I don't think there is any at the moment. What happens in this position, in this variation with bishop c5, is that suddenly the structure changes. I played e5 in 2 moves. It took me 2 tempi, but it looks like an e4 e5 opening, doesn't it? Simply, white is playing in a bit weird way for the e4 e5 openings. The bishop is not on c4, it's on g2. Is that good for white? I don't think so. The bishop would be more natural on c4 in an e4 e5 opening, but since he already pushed g3, you should develop the bishop to g2, not to have a weak king side. That's why black plays this way. And I'm very slow, so maybe I should do more post-mortem and hurry up a little bit if I don't want to get into trouble. Time trouble, especially. Queen to e7 looks like a natural move, bringing the rook to d8 later on. I can play bishop e6. Sometimes also a5, if white plays c3. He played c3 before I could mention it. You don't want to allow b4, b5. So this is a very interesting position, which I enjoy. I enjoy playing this position as black. And I'm gonna develop my bishop to a6. I've just created a new verb. I'm gonna bishop my bishop to a6. I'm gonna bishop, which means I'm gonna develop my bishop. Well, it's a nice place for the bishop, the a6 f1 diagonal, even if you don't win the exchange. So this is not to make the opponent blunder his rook. The bishop is nice on this diagonal. Look at this. I have now the control of the d file. The queen looks weird on e1. So you gain a lot by placing the bishop on a6. It's not just to make the opponent blunder, which he might, and then you will be happy. But even if he doesn't blunder, you still develop your bishop to a nice diagonal. Well done, you bishoped your bishop. Knight h4 heading toward the f5 square. I will not allow that. I don't want the knight to appear on f5, so I'm playing g6. Later on I can go queen e6. Let's trade here and then bring the other rook. So I've got the d file for good. I can also bring my queen, but then bishop g5. Yeah, probably I don't want to allow bishop g5. King g7 and then h6 if bishop g5. I didn't want to allow bishop g5 simply like that, so I was going to play queen e6 first, but then I thought bishop g5 was annoying. Queen e6, if bishop g5 still h6, I simply don't want my opponent to develop very easily. I could have also played queen d7. Actually, that was my initial idea, just to control the d5 with my heavy pieces. Perhaps that was better than queen e6, actually. Now I realize. But it's too late, so I already played my move. I can't play that right now. Let's go for the pawn. What do you guys think? Let's attack the c4 pawn. White is still undeveloped, so since the bishop is still on c1 and the rook on a1, black is better. I'm threatening to win the pawn on e4. All my pieces are developed. My king is safe. Luckily, my queen is not on e7, because if the queen was on e7, knight f5 would win my queen. Knight f5, g takes, and the other knight goes to f5, wins the queen. Important not to step into tactical motives. Or, if they are threatened, spot them and prevent them. He's still going for it. Wow! He wants to give mate after knight f5, knight takes f5, check. I'm gonna go to h8, and I don't see any mate. So I think this was a premature piece sacrifice on f5. Moby chess. I'm not sure about your sacrifice. Of course, I should still be careful. This is not to underestimate completely white's chances, but I don't think that objectively this sacrifice should work. What do you think, Sopiko? I think she also approves of the non-sacrifice, that it was not the moment to sacrifice. But let's prove it with moves. I need to defend my king. If bishop takes... No. Let's play rook g8. If bishop g7, I'm gonna take it. I will have 2 pieces for the rook. Now rook d1 would be logical, at least, to attack the bishop on d3. But then I can play... I wish I could play at some point bishop e4. But I can't. Okay, let's just come back with the bishop. Safe and solid. Maybe then I will go bishop c8 in the future. Looks passive, but I want to eliminate this f5 knight with the bishop, not the queen. Queen c4, queen e2 was another option. Can he do something on the d file? I don't think so, so let's go for it. I feel it's a little bit dubious. Oh, it's very dubious. Bishop f1, but then I play queen takes e4. I blundered, but I'm lucky. So I forgot about bishop f1, where I would either need to give up the queen on f1, or luckily, I have queen takes e4, and the f5 knight is hanging. So I really felt like queen c4 was not the best move, but I wanted to be active and I went for it. If you feel like the move is not good, don't play it. Trust your instinct. Queen e2. I just want to trade queens because I'm a piece up. That's basically the strategy. Behind queen c4, blundering almost a piece on a6. The good thing about all this is that now he's dropping more material. I'm gonna take here, and the f1 bishop is hanging. I was going to say that the good thing about my setup as black, and I will show you in the postmortem, is that all the squares on the d5 were covered. So even though white had the control of the d file with both the queen and the rook, I had all the squares covered. Thank you for the game, Moby Chess. I think knight f5 was premature, so it was just a one move thing. I like my position, but it wasn't winning. It's just better for black. In this opening, the other session I played knight c6, knight f3, and I went here bishop c5, which is bad. I messed up my variation. This is what happens to me many times in Blitz, that I remember, since I try to think very quickly, I remember only a fraction of what I should know. So the line I like playing against this setup with knight d2 is what I played in this game. Knight f6, knight c6, and g3. So white is going for the king's Indian attack, and that's with g3, bishop g2, castle, later on e5, and wanting to attack on the king side. I really like this setup as black, so if you want to learn a new setup against this for black, go for knight f6, knight c6, and bishop c5. And the point is that you want to transpose to an e4, e5 opening, like an Italian with your bishop on c5, but the white bishop will be on g2. So even if bishop g2 here, just have a look at a position like this. Whether you take immediately or not, you can push e5, and we reach a position that looks like an Italian, but the white bishop is on g2, and it's not as active as your bishop on c5. So this is a little bit tricking white into something that is not what he was aiming for. He was aiming for a kingside attack, space advantage after e5. In this position, he cannot push e5 anymore, and there's no kingside attack. So this is a variation I love against the king's Indian attack. I think probably the best here is it with, no, c3 not, because knight g4 is already knight g4, d4, white still has. So I think c3 was the variation, and if takes e5, you still have the possibility of developing the bishop onto this diagonal. I think it was c3, the move here for white. So just to try to develop the bishop onto this diagonal, or bishop e2 later. But bishop g2 is a bit passive, because I'm gonna take and e5, and now we are playing as if I was white, so I have my bishop active on c5, and white has his bishop on g2. Of course, this is just a slight advantage, but it's a pleasant position to play. Well, maybe even not an advantage, just a very pleasant position. I love playing these kind of positions because I feel like I have a more active bishop and I've got the upper hand after b6, so I want to play bishop a6. The queen will be unpleasant on e2. I'm threatening to win the exchange on f1. So perhaps queen e2 is a mistake. Maybe you should go queen c2 immediately so that you will not get into trouble with your queen on the a6 f1 diagonal. Just a little difference. I might want to play with bishop e6. You need to develop the bishop on c1, so you need to play something. You need to remove this knight, but there's no good square for it. So it's not so easy. I think I like this position for black because it's a lot easier to play. How to develop your pieces is a lot easier than what is it for white right now. Maybe moving the rook away so that you can go knight f1 and then bishop e3. It's just very pleasant for black. I don't claim this is an advantage, but very pleasant. And after bishop a6, I certainly think that white is now worse because white is lacking development and black has developed almost all her pieces, plus has the initiative. So from here on, getting the d file, king g7. I played king g7 because first I thought, okay, maybe what about getting the queen to the d file? But then bishop g5 is unpleasant. So you should take good care of the weakened dark squares. I played g6 in order to prevent knight f5, but that means I have weakened the h6, f6 and g7 squares around my king. So careful about that. You should strengthen them. That's why I played king g7. And if bishop g5, I'm gonna play h6. So I'm attacking the bishop, controlling more dark squares. Now, there's a threat, of course. Not here, but for instance, if knight e3 here, you should always have this alarm ringing in your head that, wow, there's a tactical motive. White wants to win my queen. So knight f5 would have been a double attack. Careful about those stuffs. Even if you have a good position, you might drop material if you are careless. So king g7 steps into this tactical motive, but as long as this knight is on f1, there's no danger. King h2, queen e6, and now it's just okay for white. There's okay for black. There's no knight f5 blundering, bishop d3, attacking the pawn on e4, and I think knight f5 is just premature in this position. Of course, white would love to have attack against the king on g7, but objectively speaking, there's no justification for this knight f5 move. Undeveloped pieces on c1 and a1, the queen is not well placed on e1, the bishop is not active on g2, so it is really a position where the sacrifice shouldn't work. Calculated, of course, maybe you see something, but with the king on h8, the rook coming to g8, this is just a piece of for black, so there's not enough attack for the sacrifice material. I want to thank you for the game Moby Chess. It was really interesting, and you also tested me whether I would remember this variation finally. This knight f6, knight c6, bishop c5. I recommend it to you guys who play the French. Check it, of course. I only talk to you about it superficially. You should check it, see what happens if white pushes e5, and in general, this structure. I really love streaming for you today. This was my first session in the new year 2018. Let me know in the chat, please, what are your chess goals and whether you will accept my challenge to study one field where you are bad at this January, dedicated to working on one of your weaknesses. Just one. You only need to name one of the fields where you think you are not so good and improve that in the whole month of January. Make that your study for January and then see what happens. If you don't want to continue in February with your weaknesses, you want to just focus on what you are good at, then do it. But I challenge you to use the first month of the year to work on your weaknesses, at least one of them, spot one, and work on that field, even if you hate that field. If you don't like endgames, work on your endgames. If you fail at finding tactics, open a puzzle book regularly. Not just once, but regularly. Try to solve tactics every day if you are bad at tactics. Just for 1 month and see what happens. See if you improve at chess because of fixing one hole in your play. That's my challenge for you. Let me know in the chat and on YouTube in the comments if you would accept it. And I will be back in 2 weeks' time. Remember, next week I'm not here, but in 2 weeks' time there will be a show, probably on a different day. So for this new year, I will probably start streaming on a different day. I don't know yet whether it's gonna be Tuesday or Friday. Probably it will be a different day, but I will be back in 2 weeks' time, and just stay tuned for the announcements about my show here. And in general, I'm gonna stream even more this year, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a lovely week, and let me know about your chess goal and whether you have accepted my challenge for studying something where you are not good at this month of January. With new ambitions, new motivation and inspiration, get to those chess goals. I know you can do it. Just work on it and be motivated. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a very nice week.